Have you considered moving to Florida? You're not alone. In fact, in 2022, Florida, out of all 50 states, had the highest growth rate for population. But before you prematurely already move to Florida, I want you to listen to the rest of this video where I outline 6 reasons to consider not moving to Florida. Okay. I'm going to start this off by a full disclosure. I love it here. Jessica and I moved here a number of years ago. I'm not moving anywhere. I would not want to live anywhere else right now. And it's definitely a preference, but I stand convicted in that statement. With that being said, there's a number of things about Florida that you don't really realize before you move here, and people don't really tell you about it until you figure it out along the process. I will not be bringing up the heat, although that's probably the most talked about point. That's probably the reason I'm not bringing it up. Realistically, that's a preference. I grew up in California. It's a lot more dry over there, but it gets hotter. We have a lot more days over 100. I remember 120 degrees one day at the Alameda County Fair, and so it's a different type of heat. Over in Florida, we don't typically get above 100. It's very rare we get above 100, but it's so humid. When you go to the feels like temperature, it's always saying it's above 100. So it does feel like it's really hot because of the humidity. So if the humidity is something, you got hair that frizzes like myself, you might consider that a detriment or a problem. But I will not be bringing heat up into it because 6, 7, 8 months out of the year, it's the most ideal temperature that you can ever imagine. And when you look at Central Florida, where we're at, averages about 70 or 71 degrees for the year. You really can't complain. So yes, for that reason, people know it's hot in the summer. You run into the AC. There's a lot of parts of the United States like that. And even up north where I lived in Idaho, it got above 100 quite frequently during the summer. And it was hot, okay? But it was a dry heat, but it was. Number 1 on our list, traffic/population. Why did I group these up? Because when you go to Walmart, it's going to take you a lot longer than if you came from a small town. Okay, your small town Walmart, you can get in and get out, and that's no problem whatsoever. In a larger town, in a larger area, in a metropolitan area, when you go to those type of places, there's going to be a lot of people, so a population. And on the way to get there, it's going to take you longer. Okay, it's just going to take you longer. Traffic is something we had visited here. We went to Disney World and Universal Studios and whatnot. We would come and visit. That's what got us down here. However, you don't really consider when you're living here how long it's going to take you to get certain places. And we're in real estate, and many other people travel for whatever reason. So we travel all the time. So we hit the different times and when's good, when's not good. I'm going to be honest. I keep my maps up in my car. I put my phone in its little locked position, and I put the maps up every single time, because if there's an accident on a certain road, my map's automatically going to divert me a different direction. That's just what I do. Okay, it's something to consider. Traffic, I did not consider that as much as I should have before moving here. And along with traffic is because there's so many more people, there's tolls. So we have tolls on a lot of the highways in Central Florida. You get to the outskirts, there's not really any tolls, but in Central Florida, where we're at, there's a lot of tolls, and you have to consider that if you're commuting or, even taking your kids to school. And of course, the other thing that comes up with traffic are bad drivers. As far as statistics, I don't know, but when we first moved to Florida, we hadn't checked our car insurance rate, and we went to go switch them. We had already pretty much bought the house a few months before, then we came moving down, and our insurance agent from Florida was like, just so you know, the rates are quite a bit higher here. There's a lot more accidents. There's a lot of tourism. And so there's a lot of accidents with the tourism, and then just bad drivers. He's like, Floridians like to drive fast. Okay. And tourists typically drive slow. And there's usually a meeting of the cars when that's involved. And that's basically what he told us. However, our insurance really didn't go up that much as far as that goes. So I'm not sure, but within maybe 3 or 4 weeks being here, we were down driving. It was either by Universal Studios or Disney. And I saw a car do a perpendicular move. Yeah, a perpendicular move. He was in the fast lane. I'm just saying I don't know who it was. And came all the way over 4 lanes on a major highway to take that exit, barely missing the cement blocks before you get on the off-ramp, and went all the way over. And so whether they rented the vehicle or they're down from New Jersey, you got to be careful when driving with people don't know the area. And I don't quite understand that, because for me, if I miss an exit or something, I'm like, shoot, I'll get the next exit, turn around. It's going to cost me extra time. Oh, well, I never want to get into an accident. So I don't quite understand that, but you should be aware of that. Number 2, insurance. Yeah, we're talking about car insurance and homeowners insurance, maybe even health insurance. I'm not quite sure. But as far as car insurance goes, I just gave you the story of the guy crossing 4 lanes in a perpendicular manner. I didn't even know cars could drive that way. I don't know if he's got a Tesla or one of those new vehicles that perpendicular. Anyways, it was actually pretty impressive. But yes, car insurance will go up a little bit. It's just, you're in a city environment, you're a tourist environment for that matter. Even on the coast, we sell a lot on the coast in Cocoa Beach and Melbourne and whatnot. And even over there, the insurances are quite a bit more. And then as far as homeowners insurance goes, over the last 5 to 7 years, Florida's been going through a major issue, and we need to find some sort of resolution for this issue, but it's been getting worse and worse. And a lot of people weren't aware of this, and I really wasn't aware of this too much before I moved. When we moved, we realized the homeowners insurance was quite a bit more than where we were in Idaho. And I just figured that was based on the area and maybe hurricanes and whatever. Come to find out, after doing some research, it took me about a year to figure this out. Actually, what happened was last year, after was it Hurricane Ian came through, our insurance went up $500 and we didn't have any damage, or $250 a month, or maybe $200 a month. I can't remember. It was about that, $200 a month. And it was substantial. It's like, $2,500 a year. And it was pretty surprising because we didn't have any damage. We got a little bit of flooding, not in our place, but in the ponds and whatnot, in the lakes in our town. But there was really no major issue. So it was kind of baffling. So I started doing some research. What's going on with this? And come to find out, I guess there's a lot of fraudulent figures here in Florida, and contractors were taking advantage of insurance companies. This is the main reason that insurance is an issue in Florida in general. What they were doing is they were making claims against stuff that didn't need claims, and the insurance companies were going bankrupt over this stuff. And I remember when I first moved here, I had somebody just drive up on me. He had this roofing magnet on the side of his truck, and he's just like, "Hey, I'm doing a roof down the street. You want me to take a look at your roof?" And I was like, "Well, it is a house it was built in 2006, so yeah, maybe take a look." He gets up there and he starts taking a look around. He's like, "You know what?" And he comes down. He's like, "Yeah, you need a new roof." I'm like, "I need a new roof? What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, he's missing some shingles and it's old and this and that." And I'm like, "What? That doesn't mean I need a new roof, does it?" Well, come to find out, he said that, "Hey, listen, based on your insurance, we can just bill your insurance and we'll replace it because it is these natural disasters that are destroying it, and we will be able to let them know that." And I'm just thinking to myself, man, this sounds fraudulent, man. This sounds bad. I said, "I don't want to do that. I don't want to be part of that." And I said, "No, I do need a new roof here in the next 5 years, but I'll take care of it." So that was a number of years ago. And then come to find out, that's a major issue. That's what people were doing. They were having their roofs redone, and they're like, "Oh, the insurance company will just claim it, and then I won't have to pay anything." Well, now we're in a situation where a lot of insurance companies went bankrupt in the state of Florida, at least, and kind of bailed out. So it's something like 25% of Central Florida people, maybe a slightly higher now, maybe closer to 30%, are on Citizens, and Citizens is state insurance, homeowners insurance. So that's something to consider. Your homeowners insurance is going to be quite a bit more than probably where you came from. Although I don't quite get it because you have disasters everywhere. So I think the price comes down to this fraudulent stuff that hopefully they're getting taken care of. I know there's been a lot of talk of it lately, and there's obviously some issues, and Governor DeSantis knows about that. And I'm not going to get into politics because I really don't care on this channel. This is about moving to Florida, but it is something. Homeowner insurance right now is something to consider. Okay, it's not scaring us away. We're still on State Farm actually, but if we lose that, we'll go to Citizens. And living here is so good on my soul that obviously I already mentioned I'm not going anywhere. Number 3, Maintenance. Okay, look, I mentioned that people were taking advantage of the roofing and whatnot. What happens with the roofs in the state of Florida, you're pretty close to the equator and you don't have the distance from the sun and the thickness of the ozone to be able to stop the sun rays from beating down on your stuff. So your roof is going to deteriorate faster, plus the humidity helps out with that. The paint on the outside of your house, and if you don't keep that stuff up and you let the humidity get inside, you can have potentially a lot worse issues. The sun is a major thing, even on your cars. If you don't wax your vehicles enough, you will notice the paint start to slowly strip off. And it's just I call it the price of living in paradise. You just have to maintain things. There's something with the AC. So up in Idaho, we never have to worry about this because it's not very humid. Stuff doesn't grow in there. In the winter, everything dies off anyways. But in your pipes, in your drip line for your AC, that can get clogged up with this mildew, algae, mold stuff. And you'll notice that it'll slowly stop dripping out, or it won't be dripping out. And then your AC will just shut down because it won't be able to keep producing. It's basically flooding out. It's not getting rid of that because it's a dehumidifier too. It pulls the humidity out of the air before it conditions it and throws it in. And so that drip line is important for it to go outside the house and then drip out. What happens is that thing gets filled with algae because it's open to the outdoors and whatnot. And you need to flush that out with pressure or something, and use possibly some bleach products that they buy specifically for that HVAC system. But that is something to consider, where there's a little bit more maintenance with certain things. However, depending where you're coming from, there might be more maintenance involved in your current situation. But I did want to bring that stuff up because being closer to the sun does kind of beat stuff up, and it does affect how long stuff lasts. Number 4, the wildlife. I know, what's wrong with the wildlife? Before we moved here, I don't know how many people tried to scare us with alligators. And I'll tell you, we do see alligators from time to time. We got one in our pond in our backyard. He's maybe about a 3-footer, maybe slightly less. But from our experience, they're really afraid of everything, And I'm not saying you shouldn't be cautious. If there's a 5 to 7, 8-foot alligator, they can become aggressive, especially if they've already had the taste of blood or whatever. In which case, most of the time when it's 5 foot or longer within the subdivisions or within town, they'll just end up killing it. It's unfortunate, but there's a lot of them and they're all over the place. And all the sewers are kind of interconnected with the ponds because those are overflows. And so that's why there's so many ponds in all the subdivisions, is those are the overflow for all the rain and stuff. Because we are in somewhat of a swamp here. The Everglades are a swamp. We were somewhat of a swamp too. And we've moved kind of the land around, but we maintain where we shift the water, and alligators go within that stream. So they go through those tubes to the different ponds and the big lakes, and they're going to be around. So those don't bother me whatsoever, even though everybody had us freaked out. And the other thing was snakes. Everybody's like, oh, snakes. Oh, there's snakes everywhere. We've seen maybe 5 black racers since we've been here. We haven't seen anything else. I know somebody else in our neighborhood's seen a moccasin, but to be quite honest, I think it's always important to know the dangers in your area. So for me, moving here, we joined a snake group on Facebook and got to know the snakes. And honestly, the snakes, there's not very many of them. You don't see them very often. You should know what you're looking for and how to handle them. And you should be talking to your kids about it. I don't see an issue with snakes. I love snakes. I love the lizards. There's lizards everywhere. My kids love to catch them. There's frogs everywhere. My kids love to catch them. It's so much fun. So for the most part, the wildlife is fantastic, to the point of the birds. Up north, we rarely heard birds in Idaho. And here, we hear birds all the time. It's the most wonderful thing. And it's almost like they're singing the Lord's praise. And it's a song that's special. And I do love the birds. But along with the birds, you do get the bird poop on the car. Just keep that in mind. I just want to throw that out there because that is a con. Okay, there's a lot of bird poop on the car if you park outside. But the main thing about the wildlife that I wanted to bring up, it's the bugs. It's the bugs. The wildlife is, So I'm prone to, I should say that mosquitoes love me. And the love is not reciprocated, but certain times of the year, they show me how much they love me. Okay. And I end up with bites all over. And recently I'm starting to get more, like they're starting to come. And I do most Halloweens, in most places are fairly cold. Here, it's typically about 80 degrees. And for whatever reason, on Halloween night is usually when I get eaten up the most. So keep that in mind, that you do have the mosquitoes. And we're going through a certain time right now called love bug season. It happens twice a year. And in our area, we actually haven't really seen any love bugs this year. Maybe the season's late this year, but they're bugs, two of them stuck together. And there's a million of them all over the place, and they're everywhere. And you're driving through, and you see clouds of them, and you're driving through them, just splattering. It's the craziest thing. So that's just something to consider, that there is a lot of wildlife, and that's why our Florida rooms have screens for the most part. So, number 5, the water. Yeah, I'm not talking about the oceans, or actually, I am kind of talking about the lakes. They're pretty gross compared to North Idaho. Our lakes were clear. They were all snow runoff, right? And things die off because it gets too cold in the winter, and then they start to kind of come back. So you get a little bit of algae growth. You don't get a whole lot. Things grow year round here. It's a year round state. So the water is pretty gross. I mean, people go in the lakes and they go paddle boarding and do all sorts of stuff. They go in the ocean, and I love the ocean. But what I'm really talking about is the drinking water. Okay, it's considered a hard water. And up in North Idaho, we have a hard water. That's great. I'm used to hard waters. Actually, when you're used to hard water, you appreciate it because it tastes really mineralized, like full of metal. And when you're taking a shower, it doesn't stick on you like really soft water. It just runs straight off you. And when you're dry, you're dry. It's fantastic. However, straight out of the tap is not good. It's terrible. In fact, we were kind of getting sick when we first moved here. Like Montezuma's Revenge, only I didn't even get that in Mexico. So I don't know what's up with that, but we only drink filtered water now. We have a lot of filters, and we don't trust the Florida water. Okay. So as far as that goes, drink out of water, bottled waters, have filters in your house or something. At least do a filter through the tap you're drinking through, or your refrigerator, at least a small filter, if not a couple filters, just to get that. That is, but I don't see that as a major problem, but it is something to consider. I was thinking Florida, there's a ton of water. It's going to be great. But there's different types of water. There's varying degrees of water, maybe. Just consider that we have bad water here. Lastly, number 6, hurricanes, I guess major weather events in general. And I bring this one up because, yes, we get hurricanes. We get plenty of warning. We know when they're out there a week or 2 weeks beforehand, what direction. Like, people talk about that stuff, but when you talk to Floridians, they're not concerned. They've been living here 40, 50, 60, 70 years. They're not concerned. They've been through the worst. Everybody gets together on any major problem. So we were here during Hurricane Ian, and it hit the Gulf Coast pretty bad. It whipped through the Orlando area, went right through our town, and we ended up with a bunch of flooding. Not our houses. There were parts of the towns that had flooding. There were parts of Orlando. There were parts of St. Cloud and Kissimmee that were flooded really badly. However, it wasn't like catastrophic. It was more like, oh, this is a pain in the rear end. Now we got to manage this. Now we got to take care of this crud. It wasn't like, oh no, that was a big reason why we moved inland. Was we didn't have to deal with the brunt of the hurricane. We wanted a slight insulation. However, what I didn't consider was the flooding. This is sand and dirt and whatnot, but the water, it doesn't just go into the ground. It sits on top, almost like there's like clay. When I lived in North Dakota, I know I've lived all over the place. When I lived in North Dakota, there was like clay underneath there, and you get water up on top, and it wouldn't go into the ground. It's like sitting on the clay. It must have been easy to build a pond there. I don't know. I never did. But anyways, in Florida, you got sand and whatnot. You would think it would perforate right through, but the water table is so high. I think that it takes a while for the water to get through, and you always see it going through like a stream. It's always like it finds the path of least resistance, and there goes the water. So that was something to consider, was the flooding. And the last thing about it, and I put this in the hurricane category, but was the rain in general. I've been through a lot of whiteouts in snow. And there's times in Florida where the rain's coming down so hard that it feels like a whiteout. You can't see out of your window. And it is scary as all get up when you're driving along and it's sunny, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 the rain starts coming down, and it gets scary, and you hide your plane so easy because, like I said, that water has nowhere to go. So now you're sitting on water. Now you're like a boat almost. So everybody slows down quickly. There does end up being a lot of accidents when the rain's very heavy like that, but It's part of the things you need to consider before moving here. But I challenge you guys to consider the negatives in your own area. You might find that Florida is still the state for you. And if you do find that Florida is the state for you, my wife and I would love to help you out in any way we can, whether it's just questions or buying and or selling real estate. That is what we do for a living, and that is what we love doing. With that being said, we do offer some free materials to help you buy and sell or answer some of your questions. And all you have to do is get a hold of us. Our phone number, our email, our website, it's all in the description. And please, anytime,